September 11th hit, and it was very difficult for me to find something after that. So I went to my recruiter, who I became really close with, and after a few years of trying to figure out what I wanted to do with myself, she said, "Why don't you just become a recruiter?" And I thought, okay, I needed a job, right? And it was at an agency, a very old school agency in Chicago. I was given a desk with a Yellow Pages and a phone, and they said, recruit. And the story goes on from there. So I've been in agency recruitment, I've done corporate recruitment, and most recently I am working at Proactive Talent Strategies with Will Staney and the group, doing some consulting work. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, awesome. Well, and just so you know, as we go on, if you have questions for Angie, just type them in the question box, and we make sure those will get answered. And just to tell Dave, Nicola, thank you so much. No, I am not Ryan or Alexis. I am
Oh,
Jackie. Thanks.
is that what David said?
Yeah, that's his question. He's like, you don't look like Ryan or Alexis. Good,
Oh,
good.
David, go back to sourcing.
Right, right, exactly. Well, it's funny we were talking about that, we've all had those experiences. We were all candidates at one point, right? Um, but so as a candidate, when you've gone through the process, have you seen a employee, like a strategy for a candidate experience that you would like to model, or something that stands out as being a good experience for that?
Oh, sure. I mean, and I think we've all been through this, right? I've had some terrible experiences, I mean, the traditional, right? Not getting a call back from the recruiter, not engaging me as much as they should be. But there was one particular situation where, huge, huge kudos to what this company is doing. I had interviewed with the company a few years ago, and throughout the entire process, they completely engaged me up to the point where at the end of every single interview that I went through, I was asked, even at the highest level from the CEO, if we decide not to move forward, can you please tell me what your experience has been so far? So the fact that they took the time to ask me overall, what do you think the experience has been like throughout the process, I think was very great, because they kept engaging me. It was awesome. Sad to say I didn't get the position for other reasons, but the fact that I had such a wonderful candidate experience makes me now tweet about the company, share information to other people that are looking to work for a great company. And I mean, it really goes a long way. Think about it, as a customer too, right? It translates the same way.
Now, you talked a little bit about during the interview process, but when does the candidate experience actually start? Do you think it's something to focus on um, later? I mean, obviously their first experience might be online, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's at every point touches the candidate, from the job description, from the company website, from applying mobile, right? If you're going to have a really bad mobile experience, or try to apply online and you've got 400 questions to answer for an application, that's not friendly, right? So I think it starts from the very beginning. If you think about it, candidates are going to do their research. They're going to go take a look at the company's website. They're going to go to Glassdoor. They're going to go to other sites, and that's a driving point for them. They're going to read about the culture. They're going to read about the employees, and if that's not giving them a positive impact, then why move forward with the process? So I think candidate experience does start from the very beginning.
Now, you kind of said something about the um, starting with the job description and things like that, but how does that actually play in to what you know the candidate experience? How does that work?
I mean, think about it. If you have a 10-page job description, is someone going to go read it? I'm looking to get a job at a, cutting edge company, and all of a sudden the recruiter sends me a 10-page job description, or it's just, the traditional, right? Job responsibilities, requirements, you got to make it appealing. And that all plays role within candidate experience. If you've got a boring and really long job description, who's going to want to read that? I
Well,
mean, those are just, yeah.
how do you know? How do you know if your job description sucks?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, there's so much that's being done out there to make sure job descriptions don't suck, but unfortunately, there are some companies out there and their job descriptions do suck, you know? So, I mean, I don't know. How do you know? How do you know? I think that if it's too long, and you know, how can you tell as far as culture fit is concerned? How can you tell in a job description? You know, yeah, culture is a must.
David Nicholas said, your job description sucks if your ATS generated it.
Well, yeah, true, but that's a whole other discussion, David.
Well, Matt Charney asked us a question that I appreciate. No, he's really not a scary person. He's
No,
a
I
sweet,
know.
but he does ask if over 88% of candidates expect a job search to be painful, then why does it matter if their CV sucks? Or, you know, what does it matter if their experience sucks? Since you're meeting the expectations, like they think it's going to be bad anyway, so why care?
Why care if their CV sucks?
No, not CV, candidate experience sucks.
Well, I mean, I think to each their own, right? And now, of course, I got a little nervous that Matt asked the question, but if the candidate if I'm not mistaken, right, just to make sure that I got the question correctly, if the job description sucks, right, you're telling me why does it matter to the candidate?
No, the candidate already thinks it's going to be a bad experience, right?
Well, then why would they move forward if they already think from the very beginning that it's going to be a bad experience? Then why? I mean, me personally, if I saw something and I had a gut feeling that it was going to be a bad experience, that I personally wouldn't move forward with it. So why move forward with something that you know is going to suck to begin with? I mean, I'm sure some people will do it to see the outcome of it, right?
Right. Right. If everyone has like a shitty experience, then what do? Let's just say your job description sucks. Everything else, part of it sucks. So what can we do as recruiters to kind of put it on the upswing?
Will make it not suck, right? Um, get rid of some of those really bad job descriptions. You know, make I mean, simple things, right? Make a friendly mobile site if you're going to apply. And we're talking not even like the actual face-to-face engagement, which is the area that I like to talk a lot about, right? You know, you have so you see a job description that doesn't suck, right? And you apply to the job and you have a friendly communication with the recruiter. I think there's so many tools and technologies out there these days where sometimes we forget about the human aspect, right? And I think that really translates. So if you can get the candidate to move forward from, you know, a bad job description or, you know, maybe a bad mobile experience and get them on the phone, right? Going back to basics, get them on the phone. I think this, right, the interaction with the candidate is so important as well throughout the entire process. So there's really no right answer on how to make a candidate experience not suck. I think there's just, you have to keep it simple. You have to be transparent about it and put yourself in their shoes, right? Like if I'm a candidate applying to a job, I want to make sure that I'm treated in a nice manner, and do that to your candidates as a recruiter.
You know, I think that it's hard and we need to try to talk about specifics because it's so important. And Chris Kurtz, thank you so much, was saying it's a brilliant question from Charney because companies who create an amazing experience, they're like counterculture, like it's unexpected. So what can we do? I know we talked a little about the job description, and that's a little subjective. But what are some specific things that we can do right now to ensure that our candidates, at the very least, like in your example, whether they get the job or not, still can come out with saying, you know, this was great. I think they're a great company. What are some real specifics that we need to look at? And also, it's part of the recruiting, we know that aspect, but what can we do to make sure our hiring managers are doing that as well? And
Yeah.
how we can see that it's important.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that sometimes hiring managers are not informed as to what, good candidate experience is, right? They just want to fill a seat. And in my experience, I actually presented to my entire company at one point about why it's important that we treat candidates the way that we should treat candidates, right? So very, very briefly, right? If you're a candidate and you're coming into a job interview, simple things. Get greeted properly at the door. There's times where that doesn't happen, or a hiring manager shows up late to an interview. Make the hiring managers aware that the candidates have certain expectations, and it's not that we as a company are hiring people because we have a need or I'm sorry, because they have a need for a job. In today's market, it's so competitive that if we are not able to go out and make a difference and be a better place to work, they're going to get treated better elsewhere, and they're going to get taken from one of our competitors, right? So simple things: educating your hiring managers, letting them know how what the candidate's expectations are. Constant communication. You got the candidate, on an interview, and then after that, I mean, I know many of us here, the hiring manager is not getting us any kind of answers, any kind of response as far as next steps. So what do? You avoid the candidate. That is the worst thing to ever do. And it's just so simple. You don't want to pick up the phone because you don't want to pick up the phone. Send a text. I mean, everybody's texting. Send a message. You read a great article the other day and you thought that it would interest the candidate. Simple little things like that. The communication and the transparency between the recruiter and the candidate does go a long way.
Now, you bring up a good point. I'm wondering, let's just say there's a position and you know that the hiring manager is kind of a hard ass, right? What do you tell the candidate? Because you don't want to be disrespectful to the hiring manager and the company, right? So what do you do to have that transparency with the candidate before they even come in?
You mean don't tell the candidate that he's a hard ass?
Well, I mean, how do you do it in a
Yeah.
respectful way?
Yeah. I mean, I would prep the candidate as much as possible, without disrespect to the hiring manager, right? Share, just as I would share with the hiring manager details about the candidate, that the candidate is looking for X, Y, and Z. He enjoys doing A, B, and C. I would prepare the hiring manager the same way that I would prepare the candidate. And on the candidate side, I would say, you're going to go in and you're going to meet with this hiring manager. He tends to, disagree if you start a discussion on, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. Don't talk about, this, because that's a topic that he's not interested in. And I'm not saying, to blindside either party, but I'm just saying prep them enough so that they know. Because if you think about it, Jackie, we as recruiters are spending more time with the candidate and with the hiring manager. So I think we can kind of go in as a middleman and let each party know what the expectations are and try to make it as seamless as possible.
You're right. And just so everyone knows, we are following on Twitter. Please go on there, look for the hashtag #OurDaily. Take a screenshot of how pretty we are. We like that. And just follow along and ask questions. And if y'all have questions, and sorry, I'm from Texas, so yes, I said y'all. If y'all have questions, please put it into the question box and let us know, because I know Angie wants to help.
Wait, hold on. I want to send a tweet.
All right.
Or GIF. No, I'll do it after.
Maybe a combo. We can dance and get that part going.
Okay.
Well, tell me. I mean, because you've been on both sides, the hiring side, and you've been on the recruiting side, the recruiter side. So is there a bad candidate experience that you can share as an example, so maybe we can learn, like, what should we not do?
No, I mean, unfortunately, I've had my share of many bad experiences as a recruiter at my company, and that's why I think I'm so passionate about the topic. Just because I think at one point companies lose out on such great talent because they overlook such simple things. I think that, the biggest thing is the disconnect between the internal team. When you have a candidate coming in for an interview, you can do little simple things to prepare them for it so that they know and they have an expectation of who they will be meeting with. One of the worst things that's ever happened to me was I had a candidate show up for an interview, and the entire process has been great, right? The communication that we've had via email, phone, and then I get him in to come to the office, and we sit down and we chat. We have our 30-minute meeting, and then the hiring manager's up next, and he's not even there, right? So, that's pretty bad, right? So then what do? I kind of scrambled to see if I could find someone else in the office so that they can interview this candidate, but at the same time, tell the candidate like, oh, I'm sorry, we've got, some client expectations that we're working on and something happened abruptly. Like, you be real, right? You tell him that he's not here, but let me see if I can get you to talk to somebody else. Little things like that go a long way. And then that same candidate, unfortunately, when he was done, I told the second hiring manager that was interviewing him, he's free to go when you guys are done. And then I walked back past the conference room, and he's still sitting in there, like 20 minutes after his final conversation. And I walked in, and he's like, well, nobody told me what I needed to do. And I was like, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. So like simple things like that, and then I've had a response come back say that your internal processes are, your hiring process is so fragmented. What's it going to be like working for your company? So he was turned off. He didn't take the job. So that's just one example of, bad candidate experience. And that's just the human element, right? Forget about all the technical stuff that's out there.
Well, speaking of the technical stuff, I'm wondering, and we've seen it get to be more and more recently with different products that claim to help with the candidate experience. Do you think that there is any tools or a software program that actually can help that, or what have you seen out there?
There's so many tools out there that people can use, but I still think that if you don't add that human touch to it, it doesn't work. You can use, back to David's point, you can use your ATS for automated messages, but make sure that they don't sound like spam, right? It's just that simple for if you're going to do high volume recruitment, right? There's text recruit, there's, as simple as creating a canned response, on Gmail and have that ready for your candidate. Just, little simple things for those people who may not have a budget to get some of these, some of these tools as well. But there's endless lists of tools out there that people can go and take a look at. But again, I think just for me, I'm a little bit old school because I've been doing this. I did start off with just a phone and the yellow pages. So for me, I think it just goes a long way to send a text to a candidate or just pick up the phone and say, hey, thank you so much for being patient. I know it's been taking a lot longer than anticipated. Or even like invite them to a happy hour, right? Take them out to lunch. Things like that will go a long way. Bring them into your culture, have them participate in some of the things that you're doing internally. I really think that does go a long way as well. They know what it's really like to work there.
Well, and I was teasing, it's because you're old and I'm old. Like, we remember recruiting with a fax machine, getting before LinkedIn and those things. And Alan Floor is here. Thank you for being here. And he said, oh no, not common sense. Say it ain't so, Angie.
Well, no, I remember fax machines. We would actually print out a candidate's resume at the agency. We would white out their, whiteout, right? Who still uses whiteout? And take out their information, and we would fax it over to companies to see if we can get some job orders. Job orders, who uses that term anymore, right? Job orders. So that's the way that I learned, and I'm not saying that I'm ancient as far as technology is concerned. I love technology and gadgets and tools, and all of that stuff sparks me, but I like to couple that with the human touch, right? I do love these cool tools. Like, one thing that I discovered, I thought I discovered it and it was the best tool out there, was You Can Book Me, where I would just send a link to my candidates and my hiring managers and have them book time on my calendar. And I was shocked when I got responses from my candidates saying, oh my gosh, that's such a cool tool. And I thought, it's so simple. And now there's hundreds of, like tools out there for scheduling, right? So, I mean, I can go on and on and on, and I'm trying to tweet at the same time,
You're doing
which
fabulous.
did I answer your question?
Yeah, I
Fax,
think you
fax
did.
machines are cool.
No. But I think you brought up because text recruit is really awesome. And I know if you read on recruitingtools.com, everyone knows I'm a big fan of text recruit. Um, One of the things that they do within their tool, like you can actually put the job description to text it out to give them a link so that they know some of the information and then they can always reference like during the process. But Alan brought up another good point. What about after they've accepted the offer and then day one? What is our, when
Yeah.
does the candidate experience end?
You know what? I think it goes from candidate experience to then employee engagement, right? So you got the person, but are they going to stay? And I have a horror story. I had a candidate show up to the office. We had two offices at one of the companies I worked at. Showed up to one of the other offices on his first day, and nobody was there. Like nobody. He couldn't get into the building. Like what a bad experience day one, right? So you have to, just because they signed the offer and they showed up the first day doesn't mean they're going to stay with you. So keeping them engaged, I think, is also very important. Um, I worked for a local software development firm here in Chicago, and I do have to say that they had an amazing engagement process after hiring. What they did, they actually got all of their employees engaged throughout the process. So we had software engineers interviewing new software engineers, taking them out to lunch. We had our engineers coming in and taking training on how to do the interviews, with the candidates, because it made them feel very important and made them feel as if they were part of that process also. So keeping them engaged, and there's tons of technology tools out there. Like right now, we use Slack, and we're all remote employees. And I'm a huge fan of Slack and GIFs, if you guys haven't noticed. But I mean, doing stuff like that and keeping your employees engaged, right, is also, I think, very critical after you hire them, because it's a candidates market out there, where it used to be completely different back in the day when we used fax machines, right? If you were a job hopper, it was a bad thing. It doesn't matter now. If you're a good employee, a good candidate, people don't care. I mean, that's what I think.
Well, it's funny. Chris Kurtz brought up. He said his kiss of death on Glassdoor is declined offer with negative experience. Ouch. And but it brings it up an important point because Glassdoor is, as hiring people, you got to look at that because that candidates are gonna look at that. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
continue.
sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
It's all about you, Angie. This is your world.
But you know what's going to happen though with Glassdoor? I mean, there's pros and cons to Glassdoor too. You're going to have a really angry employee who's going to go and write a shitty review just because they had a bad experience at a company. So you can't just put all your weight into that, right? You're not going to just go look at Glassdoor and be like, oh, the CEO has a 50% rating. I mean, I'm sure that there's some truth to some of what's written on Glassdoor, but you can always do some, backdoor searches as well. It doesn't mean that that's going to be your only way of determining whether that's going to be a good opportunity for you. So I would look at Glassdoor, look at the company's website and see who you can find that may know someone who works there. I actually took a position to go work at a company that had a really, really negative rating on Glassdoor, but there was so much chaos going on. There was changes in ownership, and it was that caused the problem, because when I was called to be recruited to go work for the company, my first thing that I said was, why would I work for you? Your Glassdoor ratings are just terrible. I would never want to take this on. But as a recruiting leader, I thought, what an awesome opportunity for me to go in and fix it, right? And then then I interviewed people, got the information, what was wrong, and then ended up turning that around. So, yes, kiss of death. But if you use that as your only source, then then you're in trouble as well. You gotta use other sources.
Well, Alan Fleur brought up another good question, and he's asked, what have you heard of companies that do great things during the time that a candidate, when they start? who do you think, or what have you heard of a company that is doing great things, and what do you suggest are some of the best things to do while waiting for the candidate to start? So let me back up. So before they start, what can we do as recruiters, to make sure that they have an awesome experience?
So before they start, after offer or before offer?
Between the interview and the start date.
Between the interview and the start date, but they've already been offered the position. I mean, there's some cool stuff that we had done. I received a bottle of champagne when I had accepted a position because I wasn't supposed to start for a few weeks out, and I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, people do like stuff like that. I was also invited to attend an all-day meeting at a company prior to my start date just to see what it was like before my actual start date there as well. And I think just again back to the basics of keeping the lines of communication open. Just because you're not here today doesn't mean that we still can't communicate or maybe work on some stuff in preparation for your start date. And then I think the second part to that question was, what do you do to keep them engaged after they've started?
After they accept the offer, before day one.
Before day one. I mean, some of those things that I just mentioned, because if let's say they give us a 4 or 6 week notice, something else can happen in between that. And to your point, what you were talking about too yesterday on Talking Talent, Jackie, you got to keep them engaged, whether it's sending them some swag, stupid little things like that, or sending them a text, or I found this really great article online, thought you'd be interested. Just keep the communication going, knowing that they are just as important now than they were before you caught them. Because remember, you had to bring them in, right? You had to find them, you had to communicate with them, you got them through the entire interview process, and then you got them hired, right? Well, they still have to feel important after they were hired. Otherwise, it can go either way.
You're right. I know we just have a couple more minutes, but I did want to get to a question from David and Nicola. This is important. He says, who has the best candidate experience in your opinion?
Who, company-wise?
Yep.
Oh, I don't know, David. Now you put me on the spot. I mean, there's so many companies out there that are doing such great things that I don't think I can just pinpoint one that is really just, knocking it out.
Okay, what
Um,
top three have you heard? I know that Lockheed Martin has a great candidate experience. Any that stand out at all? And you can say none. That's all right.
no, I think I don't want to say none. I mean, David and I were at SourceCon last week, and we saw, Kirsten from Germany who spoke, and I thought what they were doing was pretty awesome as far as engagement, right? With the hologram, David will remember that. I mean, you see so many things out there. I think Duo Security out in Michigan is doing an amazing job with their experience. I see them all over the place. Who else is doing a great job? I mean, there's so many to mention, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings by not mentioning them, but there's a ton of companies out there that are really doing it. And I think that just because we have this amazing community, right, this wonderful openness within our community that we all share and help each other out, I think that is very important. But David, I hope I don't know. There you go, David. I gave you one.
Right. Well, that's fair. And, as we wrap up, I do want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank Angie Verros so much for joining us on Recruiting Live. If there was something that stands out, or if you have any questions, do be sure to tweet those out with the hashtag #RDaily. And don't forget to go on recruitingtools.com, especially on Mondays. We have the 5, and I think that talks a little bit more about what we can do, 5 things that we can implement. And this Monday, we're going to be looking at, again, 5 things that can help with the candidate engagement. And so, again, thank you to Angie, and thanks for everybody for coming. And we will see you next time. Bye, guys.
Thank you.